I'm Veronica Dudo. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, government shakeup, the U.S. official stepping down over his disagreements with the war in Iran. Money game, how hundreds of millions of dollars are being made betting on current events and why it's an unregulated market. Infecting the water, the potential hidden side effects of the abortion industry and what one group is doing to fight back. Plus, Saint of the Day, we look at the inspiring life of St. Patrick and separate fact from fiction. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the Feast of St. Patrick. Our top story tonight. Israel says it has killed Ali Larijani, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council. He was killed in Tehran in an overnight strike. He had become Iran's de facto leader after the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Iran has not yet confirmed his death. In Washington, President Donald Trump welcomes Ireland's Prime Minister to the Oval Office. The two leaders discussed the ongoing war in Iran. President Trump ripped NATO for not getting involved with our military operation against the terrorist regime of Iran. He also says the U.S. no longer needs or wants NATO's help, and he adds, likewise, Japan, Australia, or South Korea. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Veronica, good evening to you. On social media, President Donald Trump harshly rebuking NATO. He basically calls it a one-way street relationship with the United States spending billions of dollars to protect other countries. And sitting next to the Irish Prime Minister today in the Oval Office, he continued his pointed remarks in front of the cameras.
I think NATO's making a very foolish mistake, and I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there.
Asked if he's rethinking the U.S. relationship with NATO and possibly getting out, the president said he has nothing currently in mind, but also saying,
well, I'm disappointed in NATO that we spend trillions of dollars on NATO. Think of it, trillions over the years, many trillions of dollars. It's one of the reasons we have deficits and we help other countries. And when they don't help us, it's certainly something that we should think about. I don't need Congress for that.
The Irish Taoiseach says the transatlantic relationship between Europe and the U.S. is very important. And on Iran, he says,
everyone exists. You cannot have a rogue state with a nuclear weapon or the capacity for a nuclear weapon. Iran was the sponsor of terrorism.
The war with Iran also leads to a turnover in the Trump administration. The director of the National Counterterrorism Center resigned. Joe Kent says Iran posed no imminent threat to the U.S.
When somebody is working with us that says they didn't think Iran was a threat, we don't want those people because, and there are some people, I guess I would say that, but they're not smart people or they're not savvy people. Iran was a tremendous threat.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt also dismissed the claim, writing, the Iranian regime is evil. It proudly killed Americans, waged war against our country, and openly threatened us all the way up to the launch of Operation Epic Fury.
And Veronica, also in the Oval Office today, President Trump says the U.S. has gotten great support from Middle Eastern countries like Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and of course, Israel. Send it back to you.
Oh, and the war with Iran could also delay the president's trip to China, right?
That's right, Veronica. Glad you brought that up. That was brought up as well in the Oval Office. President Trump saying that it's been pushed back essentially 5 to 6 weeks from today. He says he wants to go. He's looking forward to it. Veronica?
White House correspondent Owen Jensen reporting tonight. Thanks, Owen. The cost of the war against the Islamic Republic of Iran has already run into billions of dollars. The Trump administration has yet to formally ask Congress for more money if it continues much longer. Republicans are asking what's the best way to pay for the war, while most Democrats say not $1 more. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us with details about what Republicans are trying to get past. Eric.
Well, good evening, Veronica. Right now, Republicans are kicking around two ideas. Some favor a supplemental spending bill for the military. That would have to go through Congress, and I'm hearing that it could be around $12 billion or more, but that's going to face some stiff opposition from Democrats. Another idea, reconciliation. That's where Congress is able to pass a spending bill with a simple majority vote, but that requires spending offsets. In other words, whatever you spend, you have to find some way to pay it back. And finding $12 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse, well, that won't be easy. But Republicans say we must finish what we started in Iran.
Senator Graham, ask you anything about a supplemental for Iran?
Yeah, I think we will. The military is looking at it to see what we need to do to help our military and maybe our friends in the Gulf and Israel. But yeah, we need to be all in and finish the job.
You've got the administration without any plan, any objective, any exit strategy has gotten us into this reckless war of choice in the Middle East. So the notion that they would come up here and ask for additional money is beyond the pale at this moment. Start by explaining why we're in this to begin with.
Iran continues to block the Strait of Hormuz. The waterway is a major route for about 1/5 of the world's oil supply. U.S. lawmakers say U.S. allies need to come to our aid to reopen it.
The Strait of Hormuz is an ongoing issue, and he has, I think, rightfully called upon allies and friends and other nations who depend much more than we do on the Strait of Hormuz being open for their oil supply to step up and assist and put the terrorists and tyrants at bay.
Others agree.
The Iranian people are ready for their shot at freedom. We are hearing that. The IRGC and this group they have that polices the streets, getting them off the streets so that the people will have more freedom of movement would be a very good thing. And I would hope the other countries will support us in that.
But Democrats argue President Trump made his bed with U.S. allies, often ridiculing them. So now they don't want to help. They add he needs to come to Congress.
Congress should have had a say before he put us in a war and not made a unilateral decision.
And Senate Democrats aren't stopping there. They tell me that they plan to use every tool at their disposal and demand hearings with Trump administration officials about the war in Iran. A group of 6 Democrats say unless hearings are scheduled, that they will call daily votes on a series of war power resolutions that would require President Trump to gain congressional approval before carrying out any more attacks on Iran. Now, the measure will never be passed, but we have to remember that that's going to eat up valuable time on the Senate floor and prevent other items like the SAVE Act from being debated and even passed. Veronica, back to you.
Thanks, Eric. As the conflict in the Middle East continues to destabilize energy markets, the Trump administration is weighing a temporary waiver of the Jones Act, a century-old law governing maritime trade. The move would allow foreign flag ships to transport fuel and agricultural goods between U.S. ports. President Trump recently called the act restrictive, noting it often drives up domestic shipping costs. While critics argue a waiver may only provide modest relief at the pump, the White House says it is a necessary step for national defense to ensure vital supplies flow freely to American ports. John D. McGowan joins us now. He's the non-resident senior fellow at the Center for Maritime Strategy. Thank you so much for joining us. So first, can you briefly explain to our viewers the importance of ships being able to access the Strait of Hormuz for global shipping and the supply chain?
Well, that strait is where 20% of the world's oil passes every day, and so any restriction on that is already being felt price-wise, and will also be felt in terms of the supply of oil. So that's kind of a global thing. We're seeing the price effect already.
Now, President Trump is weighing his options and considering temporarily waiving the Jones Act. How would that work, and what impact could it have on consumers?
Well, in my view, that'd be a very poor decision because the impact would be negligible. First thing to remember is almost all of the oil that moves around domestically in the U.S. moves by pipeline. That's by far the most efficient way of moving oil. Only 6.5% of the oil going anywhere in the U.S. moves by ship. And the difference in cost is going to be something less than 2 cents on those shipments. So if you go through the number, 2 cents a gallon, 6.5%, you're looking at 1/10 of 1 cent per gallon. So it doesn't really move the needle. And on the flip side, that's kind of putting a dent in the law that works quite well for us from a stability standpoint of moving crude around and also national security. President Trump has said he supports the Jones Act. There's a recognition in Washington that we need to build our merchant marine. The last thing we want to do, I think, at this time is do something that would impair that. But the most important thing is the impact is negligible. It's fractions of a cent a gallon. So it's meaningless in terms of the cost.
Perhaps maybe that's why we're not really seeing any movement on that. Now, President Trump has also asked some allies to help police the Strait of Hormuz, but many NATO countries have declined. Where do things go from here?
Well, the shipping industry acted pretty severely in terms of what's going on with certainly on the tanker side, also on the container side, and all of these cargo ships obviously are have no protection, and no company is going to put their crew members at risk. Mm-hmm. So I think it's fair to say the commercial shipping industry that relies or moves in that area are waiting and relying on either the end of hostilities or for the various governments to provide protection. But it's a very bad situation for shipping.
And of course, insurance plays a factor in all of this. John D. McCown, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you. You too. Prediction markets like Polymarket and Kalshi are surging in popularity, but they've recently moved from finance to the center of global controversy. Unlike traditional gambling, these platforms allow users to trade on the outcome of real-world events, including everything from weather patterns to geopolitical conflicts. It's being done by using factual data to set the odds. The system is now facing a major test after a military strike in Iran saw over $500 million in trades. Concerns are even rising about insider information. Technically, the markets are overseen by the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, but there are areas that remain largely unregulated. Joining me now is Dennis Kelleher, co-founder, president, and CEO of Better Markets. Thanks so much for your time today. So first, can you begin with explaining what are prediction markets and why are they not regulated in the same way as the gambling industry?
Well, prediction markets really are nothing more than gambling, but we had a couple of financial guys decide that they were going to try and avoid state regulation of gambling, and so they have created what they call an event contract. An event contract is really nothing more than a bet over whether somebody wins or loses a game or something. But they're calling them prediction markets so that they can claim to be regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, a very small financial regulatory organization in Washington, rather than by the states. As you know, and I'm sure your audience knows, states have regulated gambling in the United States for many decades and done it quite effectively. But these new companies that have apps that they want to put on your phone and want you to be able to bet on anything and everything anytime you want, don't like the state laws that protect consumers that they claim is not subject to state regulation.
I cover the casino industry, including the Casino Gaming Commission in Atlantic City, Las Vegas, and of course when it moved out to other states like Philadelphia, Delaware, now it's everywhere, plus it's online. So for this prediction market, we're talking about $500 million that was made on the death of the supreme leader. Does that mean that there is a potential for inside trading and little accountability?
Well, the problem with unleashing unregulated gambling across the country on phone apps is all sorts of abuses are possible. And indeed, federal law prohibits gambling through prediction markets on terrorism, war, things that are against state and federal law. Unfortunately, those laws at the federal level are not being enforced, and these prediction markets are trying to avoid all state law regulation. And so you have this scenario now where people are betting on whether or not the head of Venezuela or Iran or elsewhere will be in office at a certain date. And that allows people, actually hundreds, if not thousands of people, for example, in the military who know about military movements and potential military actions to bet on those types of events. There's almost no regulation, almost no transparency. And more importantly, Veronica, by the way, no elected officials in the United States have had any input on this massive nationwide gambling binge because these companies are evading all of the laws by claiming they get to do it under this loophole they created. So not a single elected official, not a single representative of the American public have had any input on whether or not this type of activity should happen and how it should be regulated to avoid, for example, insider trading and other conflicts of interest.
Dennis Kelleher, thank you so much.
Thank you.
An Iranian missile was recently shot down in the skies over Jerusalem near several holy sites. This image comes from the Israeli government. It says fragments from this missile fell on the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Armenian Patriarchate, the Jewish Quarter, and the Temple Mount. Israel condemned Iran for firing missiles near sacred sites. It's the season of Lent, a time when a pilgrimage to the Holy Land is particularly powerful. But as conflict impacts the region, many Christians are now asking, is it possible and safe to make the journey to the Holy Land? EWTN News Vatican correspondent Valentina Di Donato has more.
During his first papal trip to Turkey, Pope Leo XIV issued a powerful invitation to Christians around the world to journey together, not just across borders, but in faith. And during the season of Lent, that call to pilgrimage carries even deeper meaning. Jerusalem is where Christians remember the crucifixion of Jesus, the empty tomb discovered on Easter morning. It's where the Last Supper took place, and it's where Pentecost transformed a small group of frightened disciples into the first witnesses of the gospel. Israel's ambassador to the Holy See, Yaron Seidman, tells EWTN News the country remains committed to protecting visitors who make the journey.
There have been about 25,000 tourists coming into Israel this past month. Many of them are pilgrims, Catholics. We value a great deal the presence of pilgrims in the Holy Land, and we take very good care of them.
But for many pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land, the question of safety is raised. Vatican correspondent Rudolf Gehrig of EWTN Germany conducted a wide-ranging interview with Cardinal Pierbattista Pizzaballa, Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, where he touched on the situation for pilgrims.
The lack of pilgrims now, because of the political situation, is affecting, especially in the Bethlehem area in Jerusalem, but not only the life of many Christian families. The conflict doesn't allow the reunification of families between Bethlehem and Jerusalem. There are a lot of issues connected with the political situation. And for the Christians, it's becoming sometimes difficult to think about their future.
For Christians, pilgrimage is more than travel. It's a return to the origins of faith and a call to leave behind what divides. The rivalries, the politics, the national tensions, and the traditions that have sometimes separated people of faith from one another. Instead, the Pope's invitation points toward unity, with Jerusalem as the destination. Ambassador Seidman also says the Vatican itself has a unique role to play in helping promote peace in a region sacred to all of the Abrahamic religions.
The Holy See does not have an army or an air force, but it has a voice, and one which is very important and resonates all over the world. And it should, if that voice is implemented in the right direction, it could contribute a great deal.
As Christians journey through Lent, a season of reflection, sacrifice, and renewal, the Holy Father's invitation remains clear. The pilgrimage is a journey towards faith, but also unity and peace. In Rome, Valentina Di Donato for EWTN News Nightly.
The Vatican Appeals Court has declared a partial mistrial in the so-called trial of the century of Cardinal Angelo Becciu. The former high-ranking official in the Vatican Secretary of State and Roman Curia was convicted in 2023 of embezzlement, aggravated fraud, and abuse of office. 8 others were also convicted. It was in relation to a real estate deal in London. Cardinal Becciu appealed the case. Today, the tribunal ruled that Vatican prosecutors made procedural errors that nullified the original indictment against Becciu and the others, while confirming the continued legal effect of the original judgment. It also said a new trial is required and a hearing has been scheduled for June 22nd to establish next steps. 1 week into his term, Chilean President Jose Antonio Cast has indicated construction on a northern border barrier will begin. It's part of his flagship campaign promise to block immigrants from crossing illegally. The plan includes physical fencing and ditches supported by military patrols and drone surveillance. It follows a period from 2017 to 2024 where Chile's foreign population doubled. Government officials state the measure are necessary to address illegal crossings and rising security concerns. This policy shift marks a significant change in Chile's approach to regional migration and border management. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly, a new proposal. It's called the Clean Water for All Life Act, but it isn't a typical environmental bill. Tomorrow on Capitol Hill, Students for Life Action organization led by Kristan Hawkins will be on hand when new legislation is introduced aimed at regulating chemical abortion-related waste. The proposed Clean Water for All Life Act, backed by Congresswoman Mary Miller, focuses on claims that chemical abortion procedures may contribute to environmental contamination. Supporters say the bill would tighten disposal requirements, while critics question the science behind those concerns. Joining us now is Kristan Hawkins, CEO of the Pro-Life Generation, president of Students for Life of America and Students for Life Action. Thank you so much for your time. So we could get right to it. You argue that abortion-related procedures may result in biological and chemical waste entering the water system, including substances that could affect hormones. From a scientific standpoint, can you talk about some of the evidence that trace amounts of these materials are in drinking water and how they could impact human health or fertility?
Absolutely. So we're so honored to be working with U.S. Representative Mary Miller to introduce the Clean Water for All Life Act in Congress, because what we have found through our own research and studying is that in 3 metropolitan areas where we tested the water, the 3 active metabolites that are only found in the chemical abortion drug mifepristone are actually in our drinking water. These are anti-progesterone metabolites, which anyone who's tried to get pregnant, remain pregnant, is certainly worried about progesterone and knows we need progesterone. Men also need progesterone. And so what we have found is that because chemical abortions are the leading cause of infant death in our country, we're talking at least 70% of abortions now are being committed with these pills. Women are taking the pills, mothers are taking these pills at home in their dormitories, and when they are told when the cramping gets too severe to get in the bathtub, to go on the toilet, and to keep flushing and not to look, meaning chemically tainted placenta and blood, as well as the human remains of our child, are being flushed in our waterways. And when you think about the fact that you're talking over 700,000 abortions a year are happening this way, this means at a minimum 50 tons of chemically tainted blood and placenta are being flushed down our toilets with human remains every year, laced with anti-progesterone metabolites, which shockingly, after they pass through the mother's body, starve the child and kill the child, do not go inactive. They actually remain active as they pass through our water system. Is what we've tested across the country is that this water, it's actually laced with these metabolites before they get to the wastewater treatment plant, after it passes to the wastewater treatment plant, and now we've proven it's actually in the tap water.
So according to your findings, it certainly affects a lot of people. How likely do you think it is that this bill will pass in Congress?
Well, we're already over 13 co-sponsors, which we're very excited about. I'm hopeful that we see momentum. I know the Republican leadership is moving fast to see a lot of important bills get through before the midterm elections.
So many layers to this. Kristan Hawkins, thank you so much, and please keep us posted.
Thank you.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, the saint behind the feast, we look at the real St. Patrick, who he was, and his inspiring life of faith. Welcome back. While often seen as a day celebrated with parades, leprechauns, and wearing green, the real importance of March 17th is the feast of St. Patrick, a bishop and beloved missionary to Ireland. St. Patrick was kidnapped from Roman-ruled Britain at the age of 16 and worked as a slave in Ireland for 6 years. He grew close to God during his captivity and eventually escaped to what is modern France. While there, he became a priest and received dreams, calling him back to Ireland to convert the Irish to Christianity. He served as a bishop, baptized thousands of people, built churches, and established religious communities, transforming Ireland into a deeply Catholic country. He is also associated with a host of legends, including using the shamrock to explain the Holy Trinity. St. Patrick, pray for us. The church in Ireland in recent years has seen a decline, but now there are signs of hope. Tomorrow, EWTN invites you to watch a new special program, Ireland's Catholics Signs of Hope, with EWTN News' Colin Flynn. You can see that right here at 6:30 p.m., just after EWTN News Nightly. We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, YouTube, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Veronica Dudo. Good night and God bless.